Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gridiron Lion Week 17 edition. I am Casey Kreider, and joining me from 10 minutes away in his house, right here on Zoom, the man, the myth, the legend. Look at how cute he looks. Zach Rhoda. Zach, how are we feeling today?
Doing pretty good. That was quite the lead-in and introduction, but another week, another episode we still have not missed. And I'm all jacked up on caffeine and ready to make some predictions.
He's got the clean shaven look. How was your Christmas, Zach?
It was quite merry. It was quite merry. Um, it was good. Got to spend a lot of time with my family. All the siblings are around. Always a fun time in the house when everyone's there. So, how about you?
It was a good Christmas. Had some fun. Spent, as you said, a lot of time with family. Watched the Broncos get absolutely annihilated on Christmas Day. That was fun. Ate a lot of good food. Had a great time. Smashingly great time for Christmas. But with that being said, Zach, we have some football related matters to discuss.
Yes, and can we just address the elephant in the room, Nathaniel Hackett?
Yeah, we can
Let's
we
just start there, and I just want you to just have the floor. Just
I
give
mean
your thoughts first.
every week that I thought it couldn't get worse, it got worse, you know? Like we start out the season, we lose to Seattle week 1. It's like, all right, fine, that's Seattle's all amped up to play that game, like, whatever. Okay, fine. One loss, and then we win our next couple games and then just go on this losing streak where we look like a terrible football team. We somehow get a win in London over the Jaguars, and then it snowballs from there. Russell Wilson has looked terrible all year, and it's Nathaniel Hackett. It just was clear from the very start that this man was not capable of being an NFL head coach. Like, I don't I don't think I've ever seen, like, you could say what you want about like Urban Meyer or like people like that, like how much of a failure they were as a coach. But I mean, at least they came in like, and kind of at times looked like they knew what they were doing. I
They
never got a
sort of had an
sense.
excuse because they were coming from college. This man's been a coordinator in the NFL and has been in NFL locker rooms for years. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just had to.
You're yeah, I agree. It's just like you could tell, just there was no point during this year where I looked at Nathaniel Hackett and was like, yeah, this guy's capable of being a head coach. He's totally qualified for this position. Like it just kept getting worse and worse. I think when I really lost hope in like the season and Nathaniel Hackett as a whole was when we lost to the Panthers back in like week 11, or what was it, like week 12, week 13 or whatever, where we just got
Who was quarterback for the Panthers at the time with
that
their
was
quarterback carousel?
that was Sam Darnold's first game, I think, his first game back. And we
Actually has gone on to be kind of decent for them.
no,
They've
they
looked a lot better since starting him.
that's true, but like that was the game, like that was still when they were like 3-7, or I don't even know what they were, like 3-8. They were terrible, and we got blown out by them. And it was like that was the game where it was like, all right, this is where I know that things aren't going to work. And like I figured, especially after we beat the Cardinals last week, that we were probably at least going to keep him for the final 3 games of the season and then fire him. But after what happened against the Rams, I mean, you can't do that. You can't go on like national television, a Christmas Day game, and get blown out, lose by 37 points to a team that has the same record as you, is basically down to their practice squad at this point. They don't have Matthew Stafford. They don't have Cooper Kupp. They don't have Aaron Donald. They don't have Allen Robinson. They don't have anybody, and yet they still drop 50 on you. It's like
They don't
you
even have
can't.
Skoranek or however you say his name. Their receiving core was depleted and it got even more depleted. We have Tutu Atwell, I think, starting for them. That man's been on my taxi squad in the Dynasty League for the duration of that league existing.
Yeah,
So
and you just, yeah, it just got to a point. I mean, there was the fight on the sideline, well, the fight kind of, the shoving match on the sideline between Dalton Reisner and Brett Rippon, our
This
backup.
is news to me. I did not know
You
what
didn't see
happened.
that?
I
Yeah,
didn't see that.
apparently Rippon was chewing out the offensive line because they weren't helping Russell Wilson up after sacks. And then Reisner got all in his face and like shoved him. And then like Latavius Murray had to come in and break up things. And it was just like, dude, that's how you know. Like
The team is
it's
just
done.
not there anymore.
And you could even see it on the field too. I mean, the defense just gave up. I mean, like they've been playing great all season. Like they've kept the Broncos in a lot of games that they had no business being in. And after Russell threw those two early picks and they got down like 17-0, it's like, all right, at that point, like, what are we even doing this for anymore? Like they didn't even want to try to stop Cam Akers. Baker Mayfield looked like an all pro. Like they couldn't do anything. And it just that's how you know it was time for him to go. So I wasn't sure if they were gonna fire him like after the game because I thought, well, there's only 2 games left. Maybe you just keep him and see what happens. But no, they I think that was finally the final straw that broke the camel's back, and thank
Hey,
God.
I'll say this though. Baker Mayfield, when he was on the Panthers, everybody was jumping on him saying, "Oh, he's just terrible. He's the worst quarterback in the league." He's looked really good with the Rams so far. And it's been a few games now. I mean, he had quite the intro with them
Yeah.
off a 2-week signing turnaround. And then next thing you know, last game he's going off. And at the very least, I expect Stafford to probably be their quarterback next year still because he's under contract as long as he comes back from that injury. Because who knows at this point? He might honestly just retire. That's always a possibility too, with how up there in age he is, and with that spinal injury, that's very serious. And then he already won the Super Bowl, got paid. Who knows? But I mean, no matter where he's at next year, Baker Mayfield's certainly making the most of his audition with the depleted roster surrounding him. And it goes to show also, it wasn't necessarily a roster issue when he was on the Panthers, but more so just the difference that coaching can make.
Yeah. No,
And
I think
even Steve Wilkes, too, stepping in as interim head coach. Now they're looking a lot better. It's just Matt Rule. He's great in college, but he's just another example, like Urban Meyer. Still, like, much better example than Urban Meyer, but more cases than not, college football coaches do not make the same impact in the NFL. And it's just not. It's like Pete Carroll is one of the exceptions that come to mind.
yeah. No, it's been kind of weird because like you think about it, ever since the Panthers got rid of Baker Mayfield, both Baker Mayfield and the Panthers have been doing better. Like Baker Mayfield's been doing better with the Rams, and you like attribute that to coaching, but also like look at how well the Panthers have been playing since Steve Wilkes took over. So it's like it's kind of weird to see how that's worked. I think honestly for Baker, the biggest thing for him is I think he can still be a successful starter somewhere. He's just had got to have a good coach and a good talent around him. Like if you put him in like Justin Herbert's situation where like it seems like he's dragging that team to the playoffs most of the time, like I don't think he'd be as successful. But if you put like a competent coaching staff around him and some decent skill position players, like I think he can still be pretty decent at least.
And the
But
Browns
Carolina
did
never
him
had that.
completely dirty too. Like even back then, he ended their playoff drought after years and then got them to the playoffs, and they won at least one playoff game, right? Or
They beat the Steelers, yeah.
yeah. And
And they,
then next thing you know, they replace him for Deshaun Watson, who we don't even have to go into.
yeah,
But it's just yeah, and he even said like there's no way he's coming back to the Browns. He felt disrespected by them, and then goes to the Panthers, which is probably the worst situation he could have been put in. So then he requested to be released and then went to a Sean McVay coach team
yeah.
where, I mean, he's proven to be an offensive genius in the past. And surprise, surprise, Baker Mayfield's finding his stride again. So
No, I agree. So it's interesting to see what Baker's done there. But we need to talk about the big game from last week. We had D-Mel on the show. We spent like half an hour discussing it. Zach,
Hmm.
Eagles, Cowboys. I know you expected the Cowboys to win, but it was close all the way through. I know for a lot of that game, it looked like Philly was going to get the win, and it came down right to the final play. I'm going to let you have the floor here. Tell us about that game.
Well, let's just start off by saying that game sucked, dude. Like, well, let me rephrase that. The ending was majorly disappointing. Just because going in, the concern was, and what everyone was talking about, oh, Gardner Minshew, how's he gonna do? Gardner played out of his mind. He was amazing. You can't ask for a better performance from a backup quarterback. And that's what's most just frustrating about that game is it's very easy to say, oh, yeah, you guys beat us with our backup quarterback. But I think if it's like that's how Hurts probably would have done. Maybe he'd have more on the ground rushing, but offense wasn't the issue. We lost 34-40. We didn't lose because of a quarterback problem. Our defense kind of was underwhelming. We could not stop Dak. For a while, for most of the first half, I remember he only had two incompletions. One was the pick six he threw to Josh Sweat, which was terrible. I immediately texted Demo after that when we jumped out to an early 10-0 lead. And he even admitted, yeah, that's terrible. And I was an asshole about it too, because that was right after he was on the show and was like, Dak played amazing. I just said, like, oh, what an amazing throw from Dak. And then he admitted, he's like, yeah, that was terrible. And then the only other incompletion I remember he had was the corner of the end zone when he threw it up a 50-50 ball to Michael Gallup. And then the sun was right in his eyes, and you could tell he just kind of lost where it was. But besides that, Dak was just dissecting our defense, and we were getting pressure, but we weren't necessarily bringing him down. And even some plays I remember where he had one or two dudes like bringing him down, and then like mid sack, he got the ball out and completed it. And when he was doing that, I knew, like, all right, this man's just on another level today because he owns the NFC East, and it pisses me off. He's now 18-1 against the NFC East. Like, I just want to play them in the playoffs again. And I feel like I'm going to regret saying that because if we lose to them in the playoffs, then I'm never going to hear the end of it. But I want Jalen Hurts versus Dak Prescott in the playoffs in Philly. Winner go home, or wait, no, okay, like winner takes all, loser go home. So
Yeah, I agree. I will say so. What I found fascinating was the fact that the Eagles were so good with Gardner Minshew, and Gardner Minshew's a great backup quarterback. Don't get me wrong; like he's probably one of the best backups in the league. But like you compare him to Jalen Hurts and how this offense is run, and it's like he's not really even the right backup quarterback for that offense. Like you could see a couple times where like there were situations in the game where it's like, oh, if you had Jalen Hurts like on a third or a fourth and short, oh, you definitely do this or you definitely approach this differently. Like with Gardner Minshew, you can't do that. But like even still, Gardner Minshew looked great. I mean, even though like I would argue like if you had like a backup like a Tyler Huntley or something like that, like you could probably run more similar to the type of offense that you have with Jalen Hurts. But Gardner Minshew came in, and even though it wasn't quite the same offense, I mean, it wasn't that they were, like you said, it wasn't that they were ineffective. I mean, Devontae Smith had a big game. Um, the run game still, had a lot of success. Obviously, the fumble at the end by Miles Sanders was big, but I mean, he didn't have a bad game for the most part. AJ Brown, still made plenty of plays as well. Like Gardner did a good job of running the offense and running it well, even though it was different than the type of offense they would run if they had Jalen Hurts, which I thought was really impressive.
and getting Dallas Goddard back into the lineup finally after a few weeks is always a huge addition. It's great to see him out there making plays again.
You don't want to see Grant Calcaterra?
And Jack Stoll. It's like they're decent. They're young players, but Dallas, God, I remember this one play where he was like over the middle, he like faked in and then just went to the outside, and it just those are the type of plays that he makes that's kind of thrown him into the top five conversation for Ted when talking about tight ends now. And
I
yeah,
agree. He's yeah, that's a big piece. I will say one thing I want to ask you about though. Another big injury for the Eagles. I'm curious to get your thoughts. The Lane Johnson injury. He's going to be out for the rest of the regular season. Maybe we'll come back for the playoffs. It seemed like that had a pretty big impact. Like at the end of the game, you could tell Gardner didn't have nearly as much time in the pocket. He kind of was under pressure a lot. How big do you think that injury is going forward for Philly?
it's huge. I mean, Lane Johnson is all pro this year because he hasn't given up a sack in like nearly 2 years now or something ridiculous like that. And the good thing is we still have so much depth on our roster where it's not going to be a huge liability, but it's also not going to be dominance that we are seeing from Lane Johnson. We still have Jack Driscoll, who's seen plenty of reps already with dudes going in and out of the lineup, but it's not Lane Johnson. So the good thing is we need him when the playoffs roll around and we're playing against these top end defenses in the NFL. Like if you're playing against the 49ers and the Cowboys, you need everybody you can to protect Jalen Hurts against those pass rushes.
I agree. But yeah, we'll have to see. Either way, I mean, it was a really close game. Dallas is probably locked into the 5 seed. You guys, fingers crossed, will be the 1 seed at this point because you have the Saints and the Giants coming up. So we'll talk more about that later. But there's
We need to win
definitely
this
a
week.
chance. Yeah, there's definitely a chance that you guys will see each other again in the playoffs, and I know that'll be very exciting if you do. So, with that being said, Zach, I think this is a good segue to move into Week 17 of the NFL. A lot of big games, a lot of games that have playoff significance. This game is kind of interesting. The Thursday night game this week is Cowboys Titans. It's a game that kind of matters for Dallas. I mean, they're the 5 seed. They have to win out. Philly has to lose out for them to still win the NFC East. That's probably not going to happen, but still an opportunity for them to continue their momentum. And for Tennessee, this game means literally nothing. They are in a position where, regardless of what happens this week, they're going to be playing the Jaguars for the AFC South in Week 18. So, what it sounds like, and what it seems like the Titans are hinting on doing is resting a lot of their starters so that they're ready for Week 18. So, Zach, what do we think for this game? I think Dallas, I feel like, is going to win it by default just because it sounds like they're not going to play Derrick Henry, and if they do, like it's only going to be a little bit. But for Tennessee, like they're kind of in a free fall right now. They've lost their past couple games. Tannehill's probably out for the rest of the year, so it's Malik Willis now, and they've got that big game Week 18 that's going to decide the division looming. So, what do you think happens there?
If there's no Derrick Henry, there's no way they win this game, dude. With Malik Willis, because I was even thinking it would be a struggle for them to win with Malik Willis. But with a rookie quarterback, you need as much help as he can possibly get. And if you don't have Derrick Henry, which is who that offense has ran through for the past few seasons now, either if they can't, I don't know who their backup running back is, but it's obviously not as dominant as Derrick Henry. And if they can't get the run game going and it comes down to Malik Willis having to throw, they're not beating Dallas after what I saw last week. And even last week, yeah, Dallas technically, like from our standpoint, looking at it like as a viewer, it's like, okay, they locked in to the playoffs already and they could win the division, but they also need other help. But you got to think that from how they're looking at things, they're going to give every game for the rest of the season their all until I think at least this week they're going to still try. And then if Philly wins this week, then the final week, I think they could rest some starters. But this week, I expect Dallas to give it their all. And if it's a depleted Titans team, which even at full strength, it would be a struggle for them to win this game. I don't expect this to be close at all.
Yeah, I don't either. I think Dallas is going to win this pretty convincingly. It'll be interesting to see what happens next week with the Titans and the Jaguars because even if both teams lose or one wins and one loses, no matter what happens, like that's going to be for the division. So we'll talk about that more next week. But the Titans, they're kind of in a bit of a free fall right now. We'll see if they can pull out the big win next week and if Dallas could keep their momentum going. Cardinals Falcons, this game really doesn't matter. Both these teams are eliminated from the playoffs. I think Colt McCoy's back. The big news, obviously, today, J.J. Watt announcing that he is going to retire from the NFL after this season. So these are his last two games. Zach, what do we think? Who's going to win this game?
I'll tell you this: it's a game I'm not watching.
Me neither.
Trace McSorley. Well, let me start by saying this: I didn't watch the Bucks Cardinals game. I was score watching that, but from everyone who has witnessed that game, I heard it was one of the most unwatchable, boring games you could possibly put on TV.
It was bad. It was bad.
If it's 19-16 as the final score after going into overtime and there's only one touchdown scored and it's just field goals, it's like, come on. And with Trace McSorley and Tom Brady, it's like with those offenses, those exciting players, you have like DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. There's a lot of playmakers out there, but still, it's just the teams aren't good this year. And I feel like, where's it played at?
This game will be in Atlanta.
I think the Falcons will win this one. I think Desmond Ridder will get his first win.
I think it's possible. I think so. It sounds like Colt McCoy's coming back this week. I don't know if that really changes anything. I think I'm going to lean toward Arizona just because I think their defense was able to do some things against the Bucks and Tom Brady last week. And if they can establish the run on that Falcons defense with James Conner, I think they've got a shot. But I could see it going either way, too. I mean, the Falcons have been competitive in both their games since Desmond Ridder, I guess both. I forget how long Desmond Ridder's been starting, but they've been competitive at least. But I think the Cardinals are probably going to win that game at least, but it really doesn't matter that much because both those teams are out of the playoffs. One thing I realized, Zach, that I just realized we hadn't done as I'm typing in these entries because our voice of God, Jace, is not with us today. We did not go over the game picks from last week. They're pretty impressive, honestly. So
we do.
So, okay. I will tell you, it was me, you, and D-Mel. We all did picks. D-Mel had the lowest record on the week, and he was 11-5. So D-Mel was 11-5. The only games he got wrong were Lions, Panthers, Saints, Browns, Texans, Titans, Giants, Vikings, and Broncos, Rams. I went 12-4. Not bad, but you, Zach, you went 14-2.
What?
Yeah. You only picked two games wrong. The Lions and Panthers, which we all got wrong because we all picked the Lions, and the Dolphins and Packers were the only two games that you got wrong last week. So
basically this week, or these final 2 weeks, your only chance of coming back is if you basically just sweep and I don't get another game wrong and you get basically every game right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're 16 games up now with two weeks left, and there's only 32 games left in the season. So it's still technically possible. If you have a better record than me this week, I think you officially lock up the record of the game picks this week. But yeah, is that your best? 12-4 might be my best week.
I think this is my best week. I've had only two games wrong before, but there wasn't as many games played.
Yeah. You went 12-2 1 week. and I went 12-4 one week too. But either way, wow, look at us go! Just in time for the end of the season. Our game pick's looking good. Finally,
And how about also, can we talk about the two games that we all got wrong as well? Where
yeah,
the Lions, we all had the Lions to win. That was a major surprise, at least to me, with how hot they've been. And that says even more about the Panthers and their recent resurgence.
yeah.
And also, what's up with the Dolphins? I mean, the Packers they're on fire right now. They have a win streak going, but the they have a 4-game losing streak, I think.
Yeah, they're in trouble because now Tua's in trouble because he's back in concussion protocol. We'll talk about that when we get to that game. Actually, hold on, that's the next game. So let's just talk about that right now. Dolphins Patriots. This is big because Tua is back in concussion protocol. He got hurt against the Packers. That's probably like his third concussion of the year. And there's like a lot of people that are coming out and saying that like the Dolphins need to shut him down for the rest of the year or like longer. Like they're because now like you think back to what happened, he had that concussion that wasn't like officially diagnosed against the Bills, and then the next week had the big concussion against the Bengals, and that like was scary, and obviously all that came back from that. But now if he's concussed again, Zach, like not only is that bad for this week, because this is suddenly a big game for the Dolphins to win, but he might not be back the rest of the year.
I also thought I'm pretty sure I was hearing about how didn't he throw 3 interceptions on like
Yeah.
back-to-back drives
Yeah.
after that?
Yeah.
Like that's a bad look for the team and the NFL because don't they have people whose jobs is to like after a hit like that pay close attention to make sure this player still is okay to be in the game?
Yeah, it was weird because it wasn't nobody really noticed it at the time. Like the hit, like they went back and I saw the hit that everyone thinks he got concussed on where like his head kind of hit the turf, and it's like there's not like yeah, his head hits the turf, but like there's nothing like out of the ordinary that really happens after that. But I guess the day after is when he started feeling symptoms, and like obviously, yeah, he didn't play well like the entire fourth quarter. He had 3 interceptions, I think, in just the fourth quarter alone. So either way, that was not good. But this is big, Zach, because whoever wins this game, the Dolphins or the Patriots, puts themselves into the third and final wild card spot. So this is suddenly a big game, and now the Dolphins are having to do it probably with Teddy Bridgewater as their starter in New England.
Very possible, but also the worst possible time to be losing your starting quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. So here's what I'm going to predict for this game. I think Miami is still going to win. I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to come in and play well enough, and I think they've got enough weapons on their team. And the Patriots are just, I don't even know what to make of the Patriots. They're like they were close to benching Mac Jones last week, and then they nearly came back from down 22-0 to beat the Bengals. But like I just they're not a good football team right now. They're not putting the offense together consistently, and I think Miami's doing that better. So I think Miami's going to win this game, and I think they'll probably still get in the playoffs. But like they're not going to contend in the playoffs if they don't have Tua as their quarterback.
I do think Teddy Bridgewater is one of the better backups in the league. He certainly isn't Tua with how Tua's been playing this year when healthy, but the Patriots have just been a mess.
Yeah.
They're way too inconsistent for me to pick them and have them making a playoff push. They've been hovering around 500 all season, and I feel like that's right where they're going to finish and just out of the playoff picture. But with the season unwinding and these two teams with the playoffs at stake giving it their best, you got to go with the team that I think deserves and belongs to be there with a more talented roster, and I do think that's the Dolphins.
I agree. I think Miami will have the Jets the final week of the season. So again, that's a pretty winnable game for them too, even though the Jets will probably have Mike White back. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the playoffs, depending on how long Tua's out. Okay, Saints Eagles. Let's talk about it. Eagles coming off the loss, back at the link against the Saints. I think, regardless of who the quarterback is, whether it's Jalen or whether it's Minshew, I think the Eagles will win. I think this is going to be a bounce back game for them, and they're gonna knock the Saints out of playoff contention for good. But what do you think is going to happen, Zach?
Coming off a loss, our second loss of the year, we cannot lose to the Saints. We can't lose to the Red Rifle himself. If we do that, dude, I don't even know what to think.
Yeah,
I think we'll have a bounce back game. I think we'll win. But if we don't, I'm gonna be very sad, dude. I'll be honest.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know if I can deal with a back-to-back loss.
And Philly just has to win one more game to get the 1 seed. Like, not even to clinch the NFC East. They'll clinch the first round bye and home field advantage if they just win one of their last 3 games. So, yeah, I think they have to. I mean, I think they're just too good. The Saints nearly lost to the Browns last week. I think they're going to be. They're coming off a win, but I don't think they're going to be able to replicate that over the Eagles.
We need to win this game just to secure the number 1 seed. I really don't want that to linger into the final week because then the Giants, not only are they playing to make the playoffs, but then they know that they could potentially just disrupt our season as well. It's like, I don't know. I think we'll take care of business this week. There's no reason not to.
I agree. Speaking of NFC East, Giants, Colts. The Giants need one more win over the last 2 games to lock in their spot in the playoffs, and I think they're going to get it because the Colts look terrible. So give me the Giants.
Are the Colts still going to be playing Nick Foles?
It sounds like it, yeah.
Dude, the Colts are not winning another game this season. From what I saw last night and even the few weeks before, it doesn't matter what quarterback you put out there. That team is terrible. And Nick Foles, he was a hero in Philly for what he did, but he's not a hero in Indy, and he will not be because the team looks exactly like a team that fired their head coach during the season.
Yeah, they do. They're just all out of sorts.
And then you bring in Jeff Saturday, who managed to Jeff Saturday himself and give up the largest lead in NFL history. There's no way that team is winning another game.
Yeah, I agree.
But for all I know, Nick Foles could literally just go Nico mode and just throw 4 or 5 touchdowns this week and shock the world, but who knows?
I mean, yeah, I was thinking like at least he'd come in and show a better performance against the Chargers last night, but it just did not happen. I mean, they were all out of sorts. He had 3 interceptions. They couldn't take advantage even of a couple mistakes the Chargers made. So yeah, it was rough. Yeah, give me the Giants. I don't think there's any way they lose this game.
Yep.
So this is a big game now for the NFC South. Bucks, Panthers. Imagine saying that at the beginning of the year, Zach.
Dude, the Bucks have no reason not to make the playoffs, yet every single week they continue to play uninspiring football, and everyone keeps saying, oh, it's Tom Brady, it's the Buccaneers. We're just waiting for that week that they finally click. With how the Panthers have been playing recently, I can't believe I'm saying this. Give me the Panthers, dude.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Tampa looked terrible in that game Sunday night against the Cardinals. I mean, they couldn't get anything going. They were down 10 in the fourth quarter, and the only reason they came back is because Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So that's why I'm like tempted to pick the Bucks here. But like, dude, the Panthers, they ran all over Detroit last week. I mean, they had like 200 rush yards in the first half and just completely handed it to one of the hottest teams in the league. And the Panthers beat the Bucks earlier in the year. I mean, they just right now, like, they're the better team. And if they win this game, they put themselves in the driver's seat to win the NFC South. The Bucks would clinch the NFC South if they win this game, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I think Carolina right now, like it makes no sense on paper. They have Sam Darnold and Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard and DJ Moore when they can occasionally get them the football, but like yet they're still the better team. So yeah,
Also,
like I don't know. I got to take the Panthers. I think they're going to win this game because I think they're the better team.
also, the Bucks have had the lead in the division for quite a bit now, yet they weren't able to put the division away, and all these other teams who had worse records than them, they let linger around, and now you have the Panthers gaining momentum. You have the Falcons who they also were kind of hanging around there, but with how the season's unwinding, they're probably not going to win that division. But the Panthers are right there still, and the Saints they're out of it too. But a couple weeks ago, if the Bucks just got a one or two more wins in these close games, then we wouldn't be talking about this right now. But like, there's a lot on the line for this game this week.
Yeah, I agree.
Their record.
Panthers are in good shape right now. So with that being said, we're gonna take a 5-minute commercial break right here on the Gridiron Lion. Zach, I will explain why in just a second, but we'll be back. Welcome back, everybody, to the Gridiron Lion. We had to take care of some business, but we're back now.
We hit a new milestone this episode, ladies and gentlemen. We had our first. I'm sorry if you had something you're planning on saying.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Oh, okay. But well, we reached a new milestone this episode. Every week we're setting new groundbreaking. Okay, so Casey had to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
That just yeah.
But you know what?
Address that.
Now we're back. We're ready to discuss the rest of week 17. So where did we leave off? We were talking about Bucks Panthers. We each took Panthers. Let's talk about Chiefs Broncos. Oh boy.
The game after firing Hackett, watch Russell Wilson just throw 4 touchdowns and then the team just look completely different. Who's stepping in as the interim head coach?
I don't even remember his last name's Rosberg. I think it's Jerry Rosberg. I don't remember if that's his first name or not. He was he was the guy he's technically like the assistant head coach to Hackett, but he was literally hired to be Hackett's clock management guy. Like he wasn't on the team the first couple weeks of the year. He was hired like week 4 to be the clock management guy, and now he's the head coach of the team.
Oh, okay. At first, when you said that, I was like clock management guy, and I immediately just thought of week 1.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, that's who you hire. But either way, it's just 2 games with him.
And either way, the Chiefs are going to win this game. I mean, like, there's no way. I don't think there's any way we beat, unless the Chargers rest their starters, we're not winning the rest of the year. Like, it's just not. Chiefs are playing for the 1 seed. Like, they've got a lot to play for. They're going to beat us. There's no shot.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. It's like the Broncos. We have players getting into it on the sideline, like you said, playing against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are going to be making plenty of noise in the playoffs. Like, even if the team played inspired, they'd still probably get destroyed.
Yeah, I agree. Next game is Bears-Lions. All right, Zach. Lions coming off that loss to the Panthers last week. I think they're going to bounce back this week. I think they're going to get back in the win column, keep their playoff hopes alive. I mean, I feel like they have to. I mean, they're too good of a team, and the Bears are too bad of a team that I feel like Dan Campbell's just going to have this team energized to come out and win this game.
I completely agree. And they're the type of team where if they get knocked down, they're going to bounce back and just be pissed off with how they play under Dan Campbell. And I think they're just going to really have a great week this week against the Bears, who they're a much talented team, but they've also played like a better team all season. And I expect this week to be no different.
I agree. I think, and if they can win this week, then they have a big game coming up week 18 against the Packers. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. Commanders, Browns. Okay, so Washington is currently holding down the seventh and final seed in the NFC playoffs. They're 7-7-1. But it looks as if Commander Carson is going to be retaking the starting job this week over Taylor Heineke. So I'm going to be real with you, Zach. I don't think this team likes playing under Carson Wentz. Like they play so much more inspired for Taylor Heineke. And it was crazy to me because like I didn't watch the game itself. I looked at the box score afterwards and I was like, how did Heineke get benched for this against one of the best defenses in the NFL? Like he didn't play terrible. He had like maybe 2 bad plays, but like I think he threw 2 touchdowns. Like he played decent against one of the best teams in the NFL and they still benched him. Like I don't think that's going to work. Honestly, give me the Browns. I think the Browns are going to win this game. I don't think Carson Wentz is going to be able to lead this team to the playoffs.
I completely agree. I think that they're going to knock themselves out of the playoff picture by finishing out the season with him. This
Yeah.
team finally started to get things rolling once Heineke entered the starting lineup, and now you're going to take him out after a few kind of underwhelming performances. No,
Yeah.
no, yeah, give me the Browns. I think their defense, Myles Garrett, is going to be all over him.
Yeah.
And we've seen some great performances from Wentz and some not so great. And I think that this is just going to be one of those games where he's really going to struggle. They're going to get after him. He's going to make those mistakes that he has made in the past where just force the ball into double coverage, try and play hero ball. And just, yeah, I think this is maybe a few fumbles. Browns are going to win this.
Well, yeah, the reason they started off the season so poorly was because they were playing Carson Wentz. When Taylor Heineke came in, that's when the turnaround started. So, yeah, I don't.
But the thing is, Wentz did have some good games. He was off to a really good start very early on, and they weren't getting the wins, though. And that's the thing. It's like, they're still getting wins with Heineke and some underwhelming performances. And it was more so like he elevated the team, not necessarily with his play, but just his presence. And then his play was decent enough at times for them to get wins.
Yeah.
It's just Wentz doesn't elevate teams. If he's been benched on 3 different teams in the past 3 years, I mean, there's a reason for that. And then Heineke's overall record. Say what you want about the man, but you got to call him a winner at least because he's extremely scrappy, but he's gotten the job done plenty. And he's played in the playoffs before. So if they were to squeak in, they gave the Bucks a run for their money a few years back when the Bucks went on to win the Super Bowl. So you never know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I think it's a big mistake moving off of Taylor Heineke, but we'll see what happens. All right, Jags Texans. I think the Jaguars are going to win this game, and I think they're going to also win the division. That's my prediction. I think Jags take. I mean, the Texans are coming off a win. I don't think they're going to win 2 in a row.
With the downward slope that the Titans are on this week, or really for the rest of the season now, if they're not going to have Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill the rest of the season, Texans clearly aren't winning the division. That's not mathematically possible. And the Colts, yeah, we already went over that. I can't believe I'm saying it too, but yeah, the Jaguars are going to somehow win this division, which is extremely huge for Trevor Lawrence as well as Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
I mean, Doug Peterson's been in the playoffs before, but it's his first year with the Jaguars. And then Trevor Lawrence, get your young quarterback some postseason experience. That's huge for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Jags will take this one pretty easily. Even if they do rest some of their starters, I think they'll, which I don't even know if they're talking about, but either way, I think they'll find a way to win.
Also, can we acknowledge how good that Calvin Ridley trade is looking now? Throw him into the mix with what they've been doing with all those weapons on offense. Zay Jones, he's emerging, Christian Kirk, even Evan Ingram, all these dudes were kind of like forgotten about and just cast off from the teams that they were on previously. And now they're all just emerging and just becoming the best versions of themselves.
How does Evan Ingram suddenly look like a top 5 tight end in the NFL? Like
He
he's
always had the potential and talent. He'd have like a great play and then he'd just drop the ball the next. But he's finally just finding his stride with Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's and yeah, I mean they didn't give up much to get Calvin Ridley, so it's like even if it somehow doesn't work out, you've still got Christian Kirk, you've still got Zay Jones, and you didn't give up much to get Ridley in the first place. So if it doesn't work, it's like all right, whatever. Like we'll just move on without him.
ETN's only going to be better too.
Yeah, exactly. So 49ers Raiders. This game is in Vegas. The Raiders are all but mathematically eliminated from the playoffs after their loss to the Steelers last week. Um, I mean, this game's in Vegas, but I don't think it matters. The Niners are just too good right now, and the Raiders are kind of in a downward spiral. Derek Carr is looking worse by the week. Josh McDaniels might get fired after 1 year. Give me the Niners. There's too much turmoil around the Raiders for me to think that there's a possibility for an upset here.
After what I saw last week from the Raiders, where they let the Steelers hang around in that game for so long, and then finally Kenny Pickett went on to throw the game-winning touchdown. With how uninspiring the Raiders were playing and just how disappointing Derek Carr was, I mean, I've always kind of been a fan of him and stood up for him, thinking he was kind of underrated, but he did not look good last week. Threw 3 interceptions. So I don't even know, and against the really good Steelers defense, and that defense is good, but they're not the 49ers defense. The Niners debatably have the best defense in the entire league. And they're so hot right now. They still have that win streak of I think 8 or 9 games. Just it's up there. And the Raiders, this Raiders team is not going to be the team to end that win streak. I think that win streak, I don't know who the Niners play next week, but I expect it to probably carry on into the playoffs, which is why they're a team that nobody's going to want to play.
They play the Cardinals, so I like their odds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry, JJ Watt. I think you're probably going to lose your last game. All right, big playoff game here between one team in the NFC, one team in the AFC. The Seahawks and the Jets, both 7-8, both probably have to win this game to stay alive in the playoff hunt. It's going to be Mike White back under center for the Jets against Geno Smith and the Seahawks in his revenge game. This game's in Seattle, Zach. What do you think's going to happen?
Seattle's been they started off the season extremely hot.
Yeah.
And then they kind of took a downward slope recently. But I think Seattle's going to win this game, despite Mike White being quarterback. I saw Zach Wilson got benched again. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that man, just his time in New York is just over. That shows exactly what the Jets organization and team and coaching staff, all of them think about him. Like you can write him off as a bust, at least for the Jets. And Mike White's been pretty decent when he's been out there, but still, I think the Seahawks in Seattle, they're going to take care of business.
I'm gonna disagree, and here's why. I think that I'm tempted to go either way with this game. I think the Jets are gonna win because their defense is better. I think their defense is gonna be able to slow down and cause problems for Geno, who really has not played that well the past couple of weeks. And the bigger concern I have is the Seahawks defense is terrible. I mean, they just have not looked good most of the past 6 weeks. And I could easily see Mike White, carving them up, having a couple touchdown passes. If they can get Zonovan Knight in the run game going again, like I could see. I feel like this is a game where Seattle just doesn't match up very well with the Jets. I could see it going either way. I mean, Geno's going to be playing obviously with a chip on his shoulder because the team that drafted him, and now he's playing somewhere else in Seattle after they wrote him off. I could see it going the other way, but I think the Jets probably find a way to win this game and at least keep their playoff hopes alive for another week before they play the Dolphins. But we'll see what happens. Another big game. Vikings and Packers. The Packers are in a situation now after their win over the Dolphins and all the losses last week. If they win out and Washington loses one of their last two games, the Packers are in the playoffs. But they get the Vikings and the Lions the last 2 weeks of the season. So, Zach, the
I'll tell you
Vikings
what, dude.
eeked
The
another.
Vikings have looked. I'm sorry, I just completely just jumped in,
You're
but
fine.
the Vikings have looked worse and worse every single week recently, and the Packers have been the complete opposite. The Packers are on fire right now, and the Vikings, even in the wins that they've had, they've been extremely close. Last week, they barely put out that win. They beat the Giants, right?
Yeah, but
Okay, I
barely.
was about to, yeah, I couldn't. I remember the Giants. Okay, anyways, yeah, Vikings barely beat the Giants last week, and then the week before came back in a game that against 31 other NFL teams, most likely, or 30. Okay, you're not going to do that against any other team besides a team coached by Jeff Saturday. So, eh, with that being said, the Vikings are just, I don't care what their record says, they're losing momentum at the worst time possible as you're going into the playoffs. And if you talk to most people, a lot of people are going to say they're pretenders. And I view the Vikings, I wouldn't say they don't belong in the playoffs. I wouldn't go that far, but they're not, they're like a tier below the rest of the teams in the NFL at the very top. I put the Eagles, Cowboys, and Niners all above the Vikings, and then the Vikings right there in the mix with the Giants, the Commanders, and last week just went to prove how they're not too far off from the Giants, despite having a much better record.
I think the Vikings match up really poorly against a lot of the better team. I think they're a decent team, especially on offense. I think they're a good team, but they match up poorly with a lot of the teams that are really good. I feel like the only teams they match up well against are the teams that don't necessarily have a good run game, which is why I think they beat the Bills earlier in the year. So looking at this game, the Packers have a kind of a so-so run game, but this game's in Green Bay, and it's just like how many more? I mean, did you see the stat where the Vikings are 11-0 in one score games this year? Like that's insane. Like 11 of their wins have come in one score games, like down at the end, like down at the wire. Like I don't see how that's sustainable. Like I don't think they can keep doing that. So I'm going to agree with you here. Give me the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers, knowing that he has to win this game, I mean, we've seen this before. Oh, run the table, run the table. Everybody relax. Like, I don't know if they're going to beat the Lions next week, but I think they match up well enough with the Vikings that I think that Aaron Rodgers, especially in Lambeau, is probably going to find a way to win this game. So, yeah, give me Green Bay.
Give me them as well. I
I think
think that they're just, it's not a good matchup for the Vikings. And Vikings, they could lose this game. They're still going to be in the playoffs, but Packers are playing with everything on the line right now.
I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out there in Lambeau Field in the frozen tundra. Rams, Chargers. Chargers are already locked into the playoffs. Rams are obviously eliminated. Give me the Chargers. I think, Baker Mayfield and the Rams might put up a good fight, but I still think that the Chargers, the way Justin Herbert's been playing, even though it hasn't necessarily been great, I feel like the Rams are still too depleted to actually lose to a good NFL team. So give me the Chargers in this one.
That's the thing. Like, with the Rams played out of their minds last week, but I still think the Chargers are going to take this one simply due to lack of dudes out there on the field for the Rams. Sean McVay's a much better coach, but I just think that the Chargers will get it done.
The battle for LA is going to go to the Chargers, I think. Uh,
Yeah,
that'll be an interesting game. All right, Sunday night football. Steelers Ravens, one of the best rivalries in the NFL. The Ravens are already locked into the playoffs. They've clinched at least a wild card. The Steelers are still alive. They need to win out and they need to get some help, but they've been playing well the past couple weeks. Um, unfortunately, I think that ends here. I think I've been saying all year, I think the Steelers are going to have a losing record. I think this is where it happens. Either whether it's Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson, I think it's up in the air which one of them plays for this week. I don't think it matters. I don't think they match up well with the Ravens. I think the Ravens could run the ball on them. And their offense, even though it's improving, I still don't think is good enough against a Ravens defense that's pretty solid. So give me Baltimore to win this game and knock the Steelers out of the playoffs.
I agree. I mean, the Steelers' defense has been bailing out the offense recently, and as optimistic as I've been about the Steelers recently, after watching them play a full game, that offense is just, it's young. Let me say that first. It's young. Kenny Pickett's a rookie. You have Najee in his second year, young offensive line still developing, young tight end, young wide receivers. But the play calling itself even is so uninspiring. So many screens that go nowhere, so many runs that go nowhere. They don't even let Pickett even attempt to throw it more than 20 yards down the field. And whenever he does, he stares down or he just has his first read that he throws to. Like it seems like they just haven't really opened up the playbook that much yet for him. And as much as I like to pick them to win this game, I think the Ravens will with anyone, like either of their quarterbacks out there.
Yeah, that's my thinking, especially if Lamar does come back. Even though I don't know if I'm not sure what his status is, but either way, yeah, they match up too well, I think. And the Ravens coming off another win over the Falcons, trying to get that momentum prior to the playoffs. All right, last game of the week, and it's probably one of the biggest games of the year when you look at the records of the teams and how they match up in the playoff picture. Bills Bengals on Monday Night Football. If the Chiefs lose one of their last two games somehow, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it does, this game could very well decide who ends up getting the 1 seed in the AFC. Right now, the Bills have it. The Bengals are a game back. This game is in Cincinnati. Man, this is tough. I'm gonna go Cincinnati here. I think the Bills have some issues on their team. I'm debating if I'm gonna still pick them to win the Super Bowl or not when we do our eventual playoff predictions. I'm just not. They just can't run the ball well enough. They were in like the Bears kept that game close last week until the end, and Cincinnati, the way their offense is playing, I know they almost blew a 22-point lead to the Patriots, but like it seems like when their offense is humming and it's right, like they look unstoppable. And even the Bills defense a couple weeks ago gave up 30 points to the Dolphins, who've been struggling the past few weeks. So I think Joe Burrow is going to come in at home and that offense is going to have a big night. I think this is going to be a shootout. It's probably both teams are going to be in the 30s at least. And I think Cincinnati, I think, is better suited to win that game. I think they'll get the dub.
I'll say this. It definitely is going to be a shootout. It's going to be very close, probably one score game. The loser of this game will go on to win the next time that these teams see each other in the playoffs, because I do think these two teams will be playing each other again. And with that being said, I'm going to go with the upset here. I think the Bills win this one.
You think that's an upset? I mean, these two teams are pretty even, I feel like. They are
With
the road.
how hot the Bengals are right now, earlier I saw on TV, on ESPN, there's a graphic up with power rankings for the NFL. Eagles are 1. Bengals are there at 2. They're on a surge recently, right above the Bills and Chiefs.
I kind of agree with that. It's just like I feel like everyone's saying like, oh, like we know how good the Bills are with Josh Allen, but like I feel like people are kind of sleeping on the Bengals a little bit. Like I think they are honestly like they might be the best team in the AFC right now, the way they're playing. Like
And if the Bengals go on to win this game, then they are the team to beat in the AFC by far. They're a team no one wants to run into in the playoffs, considering the run that they went on last year. And I'll say this real quick. I mean, we'll get more into an in-depth playoff prediction in a later episode. But off the top of my head, there's 3 teams in the AFC and 3 teams in the NFC that some combination of those two is going to be in the Super Bowl. I'm willing to bet all my money. Where AFC, Bengals, Bills, Chiefs. It's going to be one of those three, and then the NFC, Niners, Eagles, Cowboys. I I don't know who exactly. You never know because a lot of those teams are neck and neck. But I'm willing to bet everything that it's going to be two of those six teams.
Yeah, I agree. I do think like I'm gonna say this right now. I do think these are the two best teams in the AFC. I I'm not gonna say the Chiefs are pretenders, but I don't think they're as good as we think they are. I mean, I know Patrick Mahomes is having a great year and he's probably, well, maybe gonna win MVP unless Burrow or Allen do something crazy on Monday night. But like I don't they don't seem quite right. Like even the games they've won this year, they've had some impressive wins, don't get me wrong, but I'm just not sure how they're going to match up. They already lost to the Bengals earlier this year. I don't know how they're going to match up when they have to play these teams in the playoffs. I think these are probably the two teams. I don't know which one of them is going to make the Super Bowl, but I'm going to make a prediction right now that one of these two teams playing will be in the Super Bowl, whether it's the Bills or the Bengals, because I think they are the best teams in the AFC right now.
I agree.
Could be an AFC Championship game preview. Maybe we'll have to see, depending on how things go. But well, Zach, with that being said, we've made it through all our picks. We want to do a tiebreaker this week. What are we thinking? We could do the Eagles game.
I can't even begin to guess that one.
Sure. You want to do a different one?
Yeah, I don't want to do Eagles again. We did them last week.
We can't do Bills Bengals. Let's do how about Dolphins? Do you want to do Dolphins Patriots?
That is interesting. With Bridgewater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
How about give me Dolphins 24-14.
Ooh, okay. 24-14. I am going to take the Dolphins. I actually see this being a little higher scoring. I'm going to take them 27-21. I think the Patriots are going to try to get whatever life they can out of their offense. I just don't think it's going to work, and I think the Dolphins are going to get enough plays to where they'll find a way to win the game, and it's going to be somewhat high scoring, but not overly high scoring because this is the Patriots and they just don't score a lot of points most of the time. But either way, we will see what happens. It's a big game, big week in the NFL. Lots going to happen. We're going to be back next week to discuss and break down all of it. Penn State plays in the Rose Bowl next Monday against Utah. Any quick prediction for that game, Zach?
We got to win. We have to win that game.
I hope we do. I think Penn State's defense is going to be the deciding factor in that game. I think Penn State's going to win it because I think Utah's defense isn't that good.
It's the only way I can ever get over our loss to USC in the last Rose Bowl we're in. We need to win this game. I can't deal with another Rose Bowl loss.
I agree. College football playoff is this weekend too. So there's a lot of great football all around this week, but we'll be back next week on the Gridiron Line to break it all down. For Jace Gibbons, who was with us in spirit, and for Zach Rhoda, I am Casey Kreider saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time on the Gridiron Lion Show.